There is a lot of drama and controversy surrounding slapping right now, and as a result, I've been wrapped up like a Christmas present in the middle of all of it because for the last couple of years, I've been seen as the preeminent expert on professional slapping. I'm like the Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart for slaps. I can hear a slap and I can tell you who threw it. I've made so much content on professional slapping over the last few years. I love that sport more than a fish loves water. I've followed it from its humble beginnings as a circus freak show side act at a weightlifting competition all the way into what it's blossomed into today, an entire industry and silly niche sport. And as a result, I've been catching a lot of blame for what's recently unfolded with Power Slap. Power Slap is Dana White's new slapping sport, and it is remarkably dangerous. And I'm sure if you've been on Twitter today, you've seen the viral clips from episode 1 with the wild knockouts that look like someone getting hit by 5 different trains from all angles. It's very brutal. And since I've covered slapping for so long, people are blaming me for bringing it to Dana White's attention, as if I'm just like his little court jester who's keeping him up to date on things like slapping. He and I aren't friends. I've never spoken to him in my life. I'm not a fan of Dana White. I think the way he treats the UFC fighters is a fucking joke. I think it's criminal how bad their contracts are. And I have absolutely nothing to do with Power Slap. But I feel the need to defend myself because for a lot of people, especially UFC fans, they're looking at me as the supervillain, like the mustache twirling evil guy behind the scenes, the puppet master that made Dana White dance, which I actually find extremely entertaining because Power Slap flopped harder than Morbius. This did not do well for him. Dana White's invested millions upon millions of dollars in this, expecting it to be a smash hit, and the only thing it smashed was his fucking wallet here. So if I truly did influence his perception of how popular slapping was, I find that to be a great joke because he invested so much money into it only for the reality to slap him in the face. Contrary to popular belief, I don't like Power Slap. I don't like what Dana White is doing with it, and I'll explain why. What he's doing is significantly more dangerous than the slap fighting that I enjoy, such as Slap Fight Championship. There is a very strict set of rules as well as medical supervision and regulations that they follow to ensure that people aren't just getting hit with fucking frying pans and forgetting who they are and where they were. Now, of course, by the very nature of this, it's dangerous. Everyone knows that, including the slappers, and everyone also knows it's dumb. That's not some secret, it's not a deep cut. Everyone knows it's stupid. And they do everything they can to make it as safe as possible, except in Dana White's Power Slap. The whole thing is just supposed to be like a wow, this is silly shit that I can't look away from. That's like, ask anyone who is in the slapping scene. Even the owner of Slap Fight Championship, JT, will tell you, it's just a fun, over-the-top, goofy sport. But he has a set of rules that keep it as safe as possible for the athletes. Rules that aren't being followed by Power Slap, even though they do borrow some of the best slappers in the world for the show. I want to show you the clip now that's floating around, and then I'm going to go over the key differences. Now, this is one of a few viral tweets that's floating around. This one is coming from an actual neuroscientist who's talking about the brain injury because after he gets knocked out, he goes into what's called the fencing position. It's actually a pretty terrifying thing, and I have no doubt that this guy really did suffer greatly from this. And he's far from alone. This isn't some, like, crazy accident that no one could have seen coming. Every knockout they show in the clips that's floating around are all pretty devastating, and I'm sure they will have residual effects for quite some time as a result. Now, to the untrained eye, this seems like business as usual for slapping sports, but there's actually some very key differences. The first, and in my opinion, one of the biggest problems, is the absence of the no-stepping rule. Now, to be fair, they do have stepping listed as one of the fouls, but it's not enforced in the actual show, so it might as well just not have even been written down in the first place. It basically is absent. In normal slapping tournaments, you're not allowed to step into your slaps. It's all just upper body rotation. You can't be like, doing like a Happy Gilmore up to the barrel and then slapping them on the way by with a drive-by. Because obviously when you're stepping into a slap, you're generating significantly more power with it. And since you're not able to defend yourself in slapping, they're taking the full force of this wallop. They're getting served a quarter pounder with quadruple cheese. It's a lot more force behind that because they stepped into it. Now, you might be asking yourself, why aren't they enforcing a no stepping rule if it's so commonplace? And the answer is because Dana White only cares about the spectacle of the sport. And in his little smooth brain, he thinks the spectacle is just big KOs. So the more KOs, the more people are going to get interested and hype and excited, the more people will watch it, which is more money in his pocket. So anything to really increase the amount of KOs, I imagine Dana White views as a positive thing. So they're not enforcing a strict no-stepping rule, which is leading to significantly more knockouts in Power Slap than in any other slapping tournament I've ever seen. Compare this to any other slapping tournament, and it's like 10x in Power Slap. And it's not just because of the no-stepping rule, they also don't really enforce clubbing. Another common rule in slapping is no clubbing. That refers to not hitting with like this part of your hand. Because at that point, you're basically just fucking punching the person. It's like a monk strike, like a monk palm strike to the face. What you're supposed to be hitting with is up in here. You know, I'm giving the anatomy of a slap right now, but this is what you're looking to actually hit someone with when it comes to slapping. You know, it still generates power, it's still nice, loud, Looney Tunes level noise with a slap, and it's still exciting, but it's not nearly as dangerous or potentially fatal as getting clubbed like this. That's very serious, by the way. There actually has been a fatality as a result of slapping tournaments where a famous strongman from Poland named Artur unfortunately passed away due to the injury he suffered in a slapping tournament. I actually made a video, I think 2 videos on this guy. Artur was this absolutely massive strongman. He was really cool, but unfortunately he passed away due to the injury he suffered in a slapping tournament. It was absolutely tragic, and it's why safety needs to be taken very seriously when it comes to this sport, which right now Power Slap isn't doing at all. It's like handing a loaded gun to a toddler in the dark. If you watch all of the KOs that are floating around on Twitter from Power Slap, every single one of them pretty much is a club. It would be called a club in every other slapping event except Power Slap, I guess. It is just non-stop clubbing there. So the fact that Dana White's wiping his ass with any level of rules that help the fighters not suffer life-changing injuries is pretty disgraceful. It's not because he didn't know about these rules either, by the way. He's someone who's clearly done his research on it because he's emulated and even taken things from like Slap Fight Championship. But for some reason, he's not actually enforcing the rules because he's too enamored with all of the knockouts. And there have been pretty much non-stop knockouts from Power Slap, it seems. Which isn't really something to be celebrating because these are real people that are taking this damage. So I don't like Power Slap, and I don't like people assuming that I do. I really think there's a world of difference between something like Slap Fight Championship and what Dana White's doing here. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next episode they have like a halftime show where 2 people just hit each other in the face with baseball bats until one of them loses their entire fucking head, just gets decapitated. Like, it's just very clearly designed to just maximize the amount of knockouts, which I just don't agree with. So to all of the UFC fans that are upset at me for talking about slapping and making content about slapping for a couple years now, I really think you and I are on the same team. I don't support what Dana White's doing. Yes, I do love the novelty and the thrill of watching a slapping tournament, but one that's handled professionally, that does have the slap fighter's health in mind. Of course, I just recently made a video about one that was equally as dangerous as Dana White's slapping tournament, the one where that guy's face got like actually completely rearranged. But that one I was talking about it being extremely dangerous too. But anyway, point is, I don't like Power Slap. So yeah, that's about it. See ya.